Since its announcement at the 2022 Game Awards, the conversation around Armored Core 6 has been focused on its potential popularity. It's coming off the heels of FromSoftware's biggest release, Elden Ring, an enormous mainstream success that had found its origins as a niche hit for the PlayStation 3. In that regard, AC6 seemed likely to do the same for a much older series, but the conversation around its appeal seemed targeted exclusively at two groups: Armored Core fans and FromSoftware fans coming in from Dark Souls and Elden Ring. Simply, would Fires of Rubicon appeal more to the former or the latter? But what no one seemed interested to ask is whether Armored Core 6 could appeal to players who aren't yet fans of either. It's a question I've been interested in because I also don't fit neatly into either camp. Armored Core 6 would be the first title I'd play in FromSoftware's long-running series, and although I have played Dark Souls and Elden Ring previously, I didn't love them to the extent my peers do. To be completely honest, if it weren't for receiving a review copy of Fires of Rubicon, I likely would have experienced the game only through second-hand anecdotes of those who already loved those properties, and because of my own previous experiences, it likely wouldn't have swayed me to buy it. As they say, once bitten, twice shy. But the world works in funny ways, and here I am with double-digit hours in Armored Core 6, calling it quite easily one of my favourite games played this year. A pretty amazing feat considering my previous bias, and how high the bar has already been set by amazing releases in 2023. Fires of Rubicon is so good in fact, that I want to go back and look into older Armored Core games to see what I've missed out on. But having the opportunity to play the game also made me realise that I'm in a very fortunate position to speak to players who also don't fit neatly into Camp AC or Souls. Although I'd like to stress that my words aren't more honest because I wasn't already a FromSoft fan, I would like to empathise with those who were turned off by previous releases, or just didn't know if they'd like AC6. For those out there who are already Armored Core or Souls series fanatics, then let this be the story of how I learned to stop worrying and love the bot. For everyone else, here's my pitch for why Armored Core 6 could turn you into a FromSoft fan. On the remote planet of Rubicon 3, extraterrestrial corporations and resistance groups fight over a dwindling and dangerous resource called coral. You have been drafted into their conflict as a soldier of fortune. Credits keep you alive, but the thrill of battle is what makes life worth living. So begins Fires of Rubicon, the 6th entry in the Armored Core series. Fortunately, Rubicon's story is fully standalone in spite of its sequel status. Concepts are quickly established in the first few moments, and plot develops in the small print of mission briefings. Over the game's chapters, a satisfying conspiracy develops with plenty of twists, but it doesn't require a player needing to juggle lore or technical details to fully appreciate it. As for the world of Rubicon 3, FromSoftware takes a show-don't-tell approach. You get a full image of the war being waged, and your characters roll within through action and reaction. This is a gritty and industrialized world, frozen in time as the necessities of land war have taken precedence. Like FromSoftware's previous games, it's a beautifully rendered space despite its desolation. Dirty deserts, frozen over cities, and pastel skies backdrop the mayhem. And although Fires of Rubicon is a high-resolution game, the extra detail doesn't distract from the fast-paced action. In a year when natural beauty has been so well represented in games, Rubicon is another great space to marvel at, though one reimagined by human invaders. Play spaces of a sheer massive quality that few other games have rivaled, which supports its main mode of gameplay: operatic mecha action. Armored Core has long been a series with cult appeal. Not everyone has played an AC, but those who have speak about the games with intense reverie. In their words, few experiences capture the spectacle of mecha combat, and only this one series pairs it with the weighty consequences that FromSoftware have made their design identity. To clarify, I never played an Armored Core game before this one, since my assumption had always been that it was too hardcore a challenge to overcome. Granted, some of my assumptions had been created by fan bluster. Well, I'm happy to report that Fires of Rubicon not only undid these assumptions, but I now also understand the appeal that AC fans have in the series. Because you see, my enjoyment of Armored Core 6 clicked when it answered a very simple question. Why are mechs cool? Having not watched a lot of Japanese cartoons, my observations came directly from playing AC6. It's a superhero fantasy of sorts. Mechs seamlessly combine the best of infantry and artillery. Think tanks with legs, or planes with arms. Mechs can break through the sound barrier to cut through defences with plasma bayonets, or rain missile fire alongside sniper shots. The sheer firepower available is enticing. What's all the more exciting is the consequences of being a Colossus. Within a mech, you are heavy and lumbering, and so thrusters and jet movement must be applied to compensate. Being the best mecha pilot isn't about being all action at all times, because that lays the road to ruin. Like a knight in shining armour, it's about knowing when to defend and when to attack. But both of these actions and reactions are supercharged due to a mecha's size and ability. Armored Core 6 understands this appeal. In a few button presses, you can effortlessly switch between long-range and short-range combat, rapidly closing the distance between targets to deliver intense bursts of damage. But when the heat is on, you can push out of the battlefield and into the stratosphere to start laying on range damage. Again, it combines the thrills of close infantry and ranged artillery. Often, your AC's foes are satellites and mobile tanks, whose meager hit points boost your confidence. But when fellow ACs enter the arena, the combat of Armored Core 6 becomes a dance between enormous bodies. Read their attacks and react accordingly, all the while considering how you'll act against them. And I'd like to stress, nothing quite matches the feeling of Fires of Rubicon in your hands. To pilot a supersonic jet that tightly turns and shunts from mere button presses, the satisfaction of landing a barrage of missiles or piercing laser shots, or pile driving through enemy defences. It should be overwhelming, but quickly becomes second nature. In line with FromSoftware's previous releases, Rubicon will challenge players. However, my affection for Armored Core 6 comes from the fact that I found the entire experience a far more appetizing obstacle to overcome. It's possible that the shift to fast-paced and spectacle-heavy mecha combat was why, but it's more likely that it's its change in structure I found more appealing. Especially to those listening who may have struggled with From's other games, AC6 does a lot to make the experience more appealing without neutering the game. For example, Armored Core 6's action is broken up into singular missions. These are often a few minutes in length and keep objectives relatively simple. In my playtime, each has been completely unique in their identity, refiguring the shape of arenas and of enemy combatants. For a game about playing as a colossal machine, the missions of Armored Core 6 are appropriately massive too, but not so much to artificially inflate mission times. Dying isn't as gut-wrenching in AC6 as other games either. Although you can manage health packs in a mission to keep going at the cost of a final score, checkpointing is so well managed that you can quickly regain progress after what looks like a devastating loss. An appreciated detail was that your first time through a mission isn't graded, as that's saved for when you want to start replaying. This small change in mentality makes Rubicon feel very approachable, and that was very much appreciated. My favourite mission so far, which I'll remain vague on, really puts into perspective how massive these constructs can get. A vision off in the distance becomes a genuine platforming challenge, recasting my usually massive mecha into a diminutive David facing off against a Goliath. But it's also one that plays into the unique nature every mission can have, by employing a very fun gag that changes the nature of how you get around. Sometimes you have to push all the buttons and lay on the damage, but this objective shows that Armored Core has the flexibility to also do what is essentially a stealth mission. It recasts you as a fly in the kitchen, getting in a few sips of soda whilst avoiding a colossal newspaper. Between missions, your character returns to a base of operations, where you can train up in a simulated environment, redesign your AC's loadout and look, or spend your leftover credit on brand new mecha parts. As a new player, I can't stress enough how much I got out of training. For one thing, doing them rewards you with free weapons parts, but it was also a showroom for great builds you can potentially use yourself, demonstrating the versatility of builds. AC6 also features an arena mode where you can face off against identifiable ACs met across the game. The title also features a robust multiplayer for those who have put in their time and effort. Action set pieces and base management create the push and pull of Armored Core's gameplay. As missions increase in difficulty, payments become more lucrative, and new technology opens up to improve your build. Although not strictly an RPG, Fires of Rubicon is one of the more satisfying leveling systems I've engaged with. Simply, every loadout change is tangible. Every single gun feels different to use. Every shoulder mount does something different. Even the shape of your AC chassis has appreciable differences. Because of how finely balanced they are, often picking the right loadout is less about upcoming challenges and more a matter of taste. You may want to keep a strict delineation between long-range combat with a railgun, whilst using that starting sword for close-up combat. Or maybe you'd like to roll into battle with a pair of shotguns to spray damage in all directions. Not only does Rubicon allow this, it doesn't force you to commit to any decision. The game features a laboratory to test loadouts, and also a pretty lenient refund system if you decide a weapon or item is not for you. It's far more appealing than an RPG where you may not get a feel for the difference in statistics until too late in, at which point respecing a character becomes overly difficult. I really like the call and response design and missions funding upgrades, but more so I really love that Armored Core 6 doesn't use its massive arenas as an excuse for creating an open world game. Instead, this content is bite-sized, similar to how XCOM manages its base and Battlefield gameplay. In an era dominated by sprawling worlds, defined somewhat by From's previous titles, it's genuinely refreshing to have a game that I can play as little as I want and still feel satisfied. However, I also feel that I do improve every mission, and I can test that gained experience by replaying older missions for better rewards. In some respects, Fires of Rubicon might be a perfect Steam Deck game because of its long burn, pick up and play nature. Playing Armored Core 6 for me so far has had more in common with a simulation racing game instead of an action RPG. You are constantly tuning and tweaking your mech, and using credits from missions to further improve its specifications, much like winnings from a race. Like a sports car, you grow genuine affection for the several tons of steel you'll pilot from mission to mission. You'll find the weapons you want to stick with, and have ideas on what to improve. Like the Forza games, Fires of Rubicon also has a pretty robust decal system for further personalizing your machine. I spent a few minutes making Pac-Man's face, which has now created a funny image of warfare being raged across Rubicon 3 by a Meg brandishing a bright yellow smiley. It's silly moments like this that makes good video games great, and I appreciate that under the serious look and tone of AC6, the developers didn't forget the dream of being a mecha pilot. It's not just the thrill of defeating enemies, but creating a legend around your exploits. It taps into a similar joy I imagine Gunpla buyers get from assembling and painting little mechas of their own. I've really grown fond of FromSoft through Fires of Rubicon, and it's because I now see the genuine passion they have for the genres they work in. They want to show you cool spectacles and ideas, making you feel part of that myth-making, and create a satisfying experience around it. While Souls never quite worked for me due to my own taste in fantasy and action games, Armored Core 6 is my first time engaging properly with Mecha and the AC world, and it's one I've come to genuinely like. Although I've shown plenty of cool action set pieces in this footage, I haven't really tried to explain what's happening outside of the mind games of mecha combat and mission interplay. Simply, I want to keep what's happening on missions a surprise to people who might consider buying Armored Core 6 after watching this. To clarify, I'm not going to get a commission if you do that, even if you tell Pac-Man I sent you. As we move into the final months of 2023, we've already begun conversation around the Game Awards and what titles might make an appearance. Although Armored Core 6 has been fought over by AC and Souls fans alike, I think there's an exciting opportunity for Fires of Rubicon becoming a brand new Game of the Year for those who never would have expected it. It's now the perfect place to hop into From's fantastic franchise. It doesn't require previous knowledge of the series, and very quickly cuts the chase on why mecha combat is so appealing. It won't waste your time with artificially inflated worlds, and the push and pull of its credit economy will keep you hooked throughout. It has a great look, and its story teases at cool ideas that other games in the series built up. More importantly, there's nothing that feels quite as great in the hands as Armored Core 6. Also, have I mentioned the soundtrack yet? It's like they got a chemical brother in the room to compose pulse-pounding techno. For those who may not have gelled with the Souls series or Elden Ring, Armored Core is a very different beast entirely. Action is challenging, but never feels unfair. The sheer speed that you can rework your mech, test the differences and restart missions makes you feel far more in control over your destiny. It's not a better system than these other games because it is so different, but ultimately it's far more my speed. Fires of Rubicon is totally unlike any other games I've played this year, but its differences don't make it a difficult prospect to buy into. So with thanks again to Bandai Namco for this opportunity, I hope that I've made a strong case for why Armored Core 6 could be your game of the year, and perhaps the beginning of a beautiful friendship with FromSoft.